Hey guys, how's it going? Companion here. Today I'm going to talk about a card that has received a lot of unnecessary bad feedback, and it's the Gnomish Experimenter. And I made a video some time ago as the top 5 worst cards introduced in GVG, and I had this card a little bit in the intro, and I talked about the fact that it's really not that bad. But at that point, I hadn't really explored too much with this card. I have tried it in Constructed by that time, and I knew it was pretty decent in some decks, but really it just didn't match up to the card quality of other cards. So that's why it's not really used in Constructed, and it might make no sense to you guys, but just hear me out, okay? Hear me out. But in Arena, it's actually really good. While there are quite a few rares above it, I think that even the websites out there that rate cards don't give this card justice. I think it's better than what they think it is. And I want to talk about that. So it's 3 for a 3/2, which is pretty terrible in terms of stats. You kind of want at least 3/3 for 3, but the ability is actually generally really good. So the battle cry is draw a card. If it's a minion, transform it into a chicken. And we're not talking about the angriest of chickens. We're talking about a 1 for a 1/1. Basically, we're talking about a shitty wisp. So I mean, if you play this card and it misses, it basically hits on the minion, you're basically paying 4 mana for 4/3 worth of stats across 2 creatures, which is, well, that's a Razorfin Hunter for 1 more mana and less toughness. So, okay, it's really bad if that happens, if you look at it that way. But it doesn't always end up that way. Okay, so first let's talk about the constructed element. What did I play? I played a hunter deck, and the reason I played a hunter deck is because a lot of the creatures that a hunter plays aren't actually minion cards, like Animal Companion, like Unleash the Hounds. Those aren't minions. And you have like the traps, which are fine, they're spells. You have the kill commands, they're spells. Then you have the weapons. In fact, this deck that I'm mentioning, I don't have the deck list because I don't remember what it is anymore. But I was running Gladiator Longbow. I was running a lot of weapons. So if you get a weapon, there's a lot of cards that aren't minions. There aren't minion cards that might actually end up being minions, like Animal Companion, like weapons and stuff. So it's actually pretty decent in that sense. Cards in Hearthstone are balanced in a certain way that the draw value is worth some points on the toughness of the card. And that's about 1 attack and then 1 and like a half toughness is basically what it's worth. So if you add those stats to this card, it would be overpowered. It would be like a 4 and 3.5 for 3, which is like insane. But if half your cards are minions in your deck, then it's kind of weird in the middle and stuff. But these ratings, they really apply to only when you play the card on turn 3. So if you play the card on turn 3, you compare it to, like, I don't know, just a 3-drop. So yeah, in that sense, it's not really that good. But my argument, and it's really one that checks out in Arena, which is what we're going to start talking about here, is that in general, 3/2 is good enough to trade for another 3-drop. So if they just play a random 3-drop and you play this, they're just going to trade anyway. It could be a 3/3, it could be a 4/3, and it'd still trade for their piece of crap 3-drop just the same, most of the time, almost every time in fact. So in the early game, it doesn't really matter, and that's really because most 3-drops in this game when you play Arena are basically crap. I mean, there's some that are pretty decent, but usually you don't get them. I mean, yeah, there's like Harvest Golem, for instance, but if you're playing against a mage, it's not really that good. Sometimes Gnomish Experimenter is actually going to do more damage. For instance, if they have a 3/3 creature, a Harvest Golem won't kill it because it'll do 2 damage and then they'll ping it down, and a Gnomish Experimenter will kill it. So the matchmaking of the cards in the early game, I would argue, and this is from a lot of experience because I've picked this card a lot, I would argue that it is good. At the very least, fair plus to good, okay? The other side is when you look at the value of a card, you evaluate, yeah, you draw it on turn 3, it does this. But what if you draw it on turn 18 when you have like nothing in your deck? What about it then? Well, this card is much better than a regular 3-drop because it really doesn't matter that it costs extra mana to play that chicken. It's still going to be the same. It's still going to be just as crappy as like another 3-drop, for instance. That extra mana is not going to make the difference to play the chicken if you do get a minion. But if you don't get a minion, it's another card draw, which is really good. And often in Arena, at that stage of the game, you're basically playing the top deck game where you have absolutely nothing, your opponent has absolutely nothing, you're at like 6 life, they're at like 5 life, and you're basically praying that your next card that you draw is good. And this card actually cycles in that case, because usually what you want in that situation, usually what you want to close out a game, is going to be like a fireball or a weapon or something to just hit him right away. The only real dud part, the only time this card really sucks is like when you play him and you need like 3 damage and then you turn a charger into a chicken. And yes, that does happen sometimes. But other than that, it's really fine. The big downside of the card for Arena is that sometimes you don't have that many late game minions, because you can't have that many late game minions, because if you do, you'd get crushed on average in the early game. So what might happen is you play this guy and your Boulder Fist Ogre might decide to be a chicken. And that would suck. That would really suck. That might cost you the game, but it's a bit unlikely most of the time. And you have to keep in mind that you are cycling the Boulder Fist as well. So even though you're removing a big creature, a slight positive is that you're 1 card earlier into the deck to your next big creature. So it's not a total catastrophe. It's not a certain loss. And yes, this effect is amplified when you get a legendary in Arena and it turns your Ragnaros into a chicken. Then you might need to take some depression medication. The issue with this card in Constructed is that, again, it's not really good enough to match up against other combo cards, just other aggressive cards that you run in that kind of deck. And if you take an example for like a Freeze Mage, while just about all the cards would be drawn through this, the stats don't really matter, because decks with a lot of spells usually use specific combination of spells. So whether it's like a 3/2 creature or a 1/3 creature or a 4/4 creature, it's irrelevant, because these cards are just fodder. That's not really your win condition. And because this card, based on some inconsistency, can really jeopardize your combo / win condition. For instance, if you stick this in Freeze Mage, well, what might happen in a disaster scenario is your Alistraza might become a 1/1 chicken. And then you would, again, require some medication or something like that, because you would immediately remove this card from your deck. So I understand why it's not in Constructed, but I think in Arena it's pretty good. Don't believe me? Well, the Arena tier list is here. This is from Hearth Arena, the Mage tier list, for instance. And you can see they rate it below average. And I would argue that if you have a lot of spells, and a decent Arena deck often will, this card, I'd pick it over like an Injured Blade Master in some cases. Not a lot of cases, but some cases. Against Arcane Nullifier, that crappy-ass taunt, I'd pick this quite frequently. If I had like 4 or 5 fireballs, why not? So it can move into the good. That's really the point. The closest comparison to this card in terms of why people like it and why people don't like it is really Flame Leviathan. And Flame Leviathan is a decent card, okay? It's decent. The reason people don't like Flame Leviathan is, again, because of consistency problems. That's why people don't really run it in Constructed. I've played this card enough, I've made a video about it, to where most of the time it's a really favorable effect when you draw it. It's awesome. And it's not really that bad as a 7/7. But losing games specifically because this card is really discouraging, and people, one, don't like it, and in Constructed it ruins combos, it ruins that kind of stuff, and that's just kind of the situation that Gnomish Experimenter is in. But in Arena, because it's a rare, you encounter the decision to pick it a lot more frequently. And you should, because it's not really that bad. I promise. Okay, sometimes it'll be really bad, but other than those times, it'll be great. Yeah. Alright. Well, I got some clips for you guys so you guys can see this card in action. Some pretty cool games, and I hope you guys enjoy them. I hope you guys keep your minds open. Like, cards that people regard as specifically bad, you really have to take a very close look at them, because realizing their potential will give you the advantage over people who are dismissive about these things. So that's why you really look into these cards. That's why I have. And I hope you guys from this video understand that and enjoy the games ahead. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. It's where he draws Fireball or something. Oh, Fireball from Gnomish. That's really how you BM. See? I'm winning? I'm winning, guys? No. I knew I'd lose against this. I mean, that's where you just shrug. There's really nothing to it. It's like me drawing 2 Flame Strikes in a row. Like, you test for Flame Strike, and like 2 turns later, you're like, well, I'm out of cards, I gotta do something. Are you really dumb for playing into Flame Strike at that point? Let alone the second time? Give me a break, man. It was just a case of getting really fucking unlucky. LOL, you drawing 2 Flame Strikes, that would never happen. Yeah, I know. Seems fine to me. It's really hard to win from this. This is one of the most brutal Shaman openers. No taunt, no taunt, no taunt, no taunt. What the fuck, dude?
The light protects me. Wanna blow something up?
Oh my god. Okay. We got a little lucky to recover there. That's the luck we needed. I think Gnomish Inventor is just pretty good. Like, if half your deck spells, he's really good. Drawing a card is like 2.5 in stats. So if he was 3 to draw a card, it would be like 3, 4.5 for 3. So, I mean, you get kind of the idea there. Is this the top healing totem turn? Okay. Oh, come on. This is a pretty good value coin in my opinion. He needs a flame tongue here again. Oh look, Hex Neuros. I kinda wanna Ragnarus that shit up.
This is going to be amazing.
Never lucky. He's had that one card for a long time here. That's what I'm mostly scared of. Yeah, it's probably a hex, but it could be like an MC tech, and I could get a bit unlucky here. That's fire elemental. That's alright. Damn, dude. Ragnos doesn't give a fuck about those creatures. Straight up face damage. Face Neuros. There we go. 32 face. Soloed. Rag in Arena makes me happy. No. Rag on my side of the board in Arena sometimes makes me happy. Sometimes it makes me a bit upset. Like there, if I was going to lose the game because he wouldn't hit a single creature, that would have made me a little bit upset.